it is my honor and privilege to introduce Bastrop County's tall Texan, County Judge Paul Poppe.
Thank you, Mayor Schrader. Thank you, and I will be brief because our program today has just been excellent. You've seen and heard the story from many different facets. It's been sort of like looking at a diamond, hasn't it? You've heard Ms. Delgado tell about her experiences, Ms. Mcanally tell about her passion to see this honored. Of course, Senator Barrientos bringing his unique and fully Texan personality to it all. And so many people have had something to do with our putting this story together and making this a special occasion. But let me just add a little perspective. In the first place, this is just the beginning of this story. This plaque will be here for the rest of our lifetimes and the lifetimes of our children and grandchildren, and every eye that sees it will be reminded of the sacrifices that were made right here in Bastrop, Texas, by the Mexican-American children who had to go to a school that was not equal in any way to the school that their white friends got to go to. It was a part of the road of progress that America has been on now for over 200 years toward treating all people equal, not only under the law, but also in our hearts and in our consciences. That's what we're striving for. The law, I think, is pretty well there. The Supreme Court on down has ruled that all people, all of God's creation are created equal, all are endowed with inalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, just as our Constitution says. What we've got to work on is what goes on in people's hearts. Until we change that, all these laws won't really matter, because it's the way we treat each other, the mutual respect, the mutual love and concern, the mutual care that we have for each other, that is the heart of equality in America. And that's what makes America great. That's what makes us different. And we've got to continue to work on that every generation forward. So I just wanted to put that in perspective. Here's what I'd like for us to do. And those of you who can walk, again, it's being live streamed back to the convention center. But those of you who can join me and walk across here, we'll go across the railroad track. The plaque is veiled there just across on the other side. By the way, the school was located just beyond this row of trees right here. The school was there. The outdoor play area, of course. The outdoor drinking fountain was there. The little brush arbor where the kids could go outside and have their lunch in the shade, that was there. So this was the original Mexican-American school, Mina Ward School, right across the tracks here. Can you imagine every day when the train came chugging by? I'm sure the teachers had to stop their instruction for a few minutes to let that go. We're going to walk across the track, unveil the plaque, and then I'd like for everybody to stand behind the plaque so that we can get some photography with the plaque in the foreground. Thank you, and that's what we'll do. Once we've done that, we'll be dismissed and we'll go back to the convention center. Thank you. All right, we're going to let Cindy Walford Gensel, who is the head of the Bastrop County Historical Association, do the honors of taking the shield off of this plaque, and then we'll take a moment to read the plaque and look at it, and you can take some pictures. And then, as I said, I'd like for all of us to get around here behind the plaque so we can get a photograph of this great occasion. So, Cindy, do the honors.
Give her the countdown.
Reveal the plaque.
3, 2, 1.
All right, there we go. All right.
Cindy, I'll
Bastrop was established as a Mexican-American municipality, later named Mina, in 1832. As in many Texas towns, early 20th century grade schools here were segregated into 3 campuses with separate facilities for Mexican-American, African-American, and Anglo-American students. Bastrop established a school for Mexican-Americans in 1910s, and in 1933 built the Mina Ward School on land here, east of Main Street and north of the MKT railroad tracks. The one-story yellow-frame schoolhouse had schoolroom space and a stage for 1 or 2 teachers, educating 8 grades of students from Bastrop and the surrounding rural areas. In 1947, Samuel and Minicia Garcia asked school officials to let their granddaughter attend the Anglo-American school but the request was denied. On November 17, 1947, on behalf of 20 students in 4 local school districts, San Antonio attorney Gustavo Garcia, supported by University of Texas professor George Sanchez and the League of United Latin American Citizens, LULAC, filed a class action lawsuit entitled Minerva Delgado et al. Versus Bastrop ISD. For deriving the children of equal educational opportunities. At that hearing on June 15, 1948, federal judge Ben H. Rice issued a summary judgment ruling the segregation of children of Mexican or other Latin American descent was arbitrary and discriminatory and in violation of plaintiffs' constitutional rights as guaranteed by the 14th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. The Mina Ward School closed, but statewide the decision preserved segregation of African American students and any first graders who did not exhibit English language proficiency. The school and the Delgado's Bastrop case are remembered for their significant contributions to the civil rights movement and for providing greater opportunity for generations of Texans. This marker is property of the state of Texas. I'm so proud as Bastrop County Judge to introduce this marker to you. Thank you all very much. Now, if you would join me here with the plaque, I'd like to get several photographs. We've got some excellent cameras here. We've got some video. I'd like for you to join us here around this plaque as this historic day commemorates the day of recognizing what a wonderful thing happened here in Bastrop. That's wonderful. What a wonderful day this is. This is a big day for Bastrop County because this is an important celebration, something that is past due and it's happening, but certainly appropriate for us to recognize and do today. So we're very honored to welcome each of you. I've met people from all over Texas and in fact all over the southern part of the United States. There's a family here from Georgia, as a matter of fact. I think you may win the award for driving the farthest. But just great to have so many people from who have a link to Bastrop's past here today. We're going to start off with a presentation of the colors and the singing of the national anthem. Following the anthem, we will lead the pledges to both the U.S. and the state flags. So at this time, if you will, please stand with me for the presentation of the colors by the Bastrop Junior ROTC Color Guard. Color Guard. Whoa. Left, face, present, colors, ready, cut.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Dr. Christy Lee, BISD.
Face, cut, upward, face, forward, march. Colors. Post.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you very much. You may be, please remain standing if you would, while I call Father Romero Tarazona, who is the pastor of the Ascension Catholic Church here in Bastrop, to come forward to lead our invocation.
Lord, may your goodness and love be present among us today. Come bless our gathering with unity, hope, and vision. Lord, we pray for unity. Build in us all a deep respect for one another so that your church may be one. Lord, we pray for hope. Come stir your hope within our hearts and renew our faith. Lord, we pray for vision. May your vision fill our lives as we seek to reveal your love. And we ask all of this in the glorious name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. You may be seated. Thank you, Father Tarazona. We are gathered today in this auspicious occasion and have a room full of dignitaries and special guests today. But I wanted to introduce some who are here on the dais with me and some who are in the audience this morning. It would be appropriate to do that today. I just am impressed again at what a watershed moment this is for Bastrop, BISD, and Bastrop County. You'll find out more of the story as you go along. You may have read the story already. But to think that 69 years ago, a decision was made right here in Bastrop County that began to change the course of American culture for not only Mexican-American students, but other students as well, not of this heritage, not of white American heritage. And this was a milestone in the process of integrating and making everyone equal, not only under the law, but also under the school bell as well. And so it's a big day for Bastrop County because this is a big event that's being commemorated today. We're honored to have from the city of Bastrop, Mayor Connie Schrader. She's on stage with us. Part of the city council, Deborah Jones, Bill Ennis is on the stage as well, and Lyle Nelson. Raise your hand if I've called your name. Mayor Lyle is here. Thank you all for being here. Past city council members to be recognized today are Martha Harris and former Mayor Tom Scott. Willie Pena is here, and Kay Mcanally, who will be talking later on. Because this has something to do with both the city of Bastrop and the school district, it's appropriate that we introduce members of the Bastrop Independent School Board and their leadership as well. From the board, we have Ms. Molly McClure there, Matthew Mix, Dr. Mix, and Billy Moore. Billy is here. Also, Steve Murray, who is the superintendent of Bastrop Independent School Districts, is here on the stage with us, and Barry Edwards, who is the assistant superintendent of Bastrop Independent School District. Very important role here today. I'm joined today by County Commissioner Precinct 1, Mel Hamner. Mel, where are you? There you are. Glad you're here today. Again, we have many distinguished guests here from the League of Latin American Citizens. This table here and many at this table are of the leadership of LULAC and its organizations around the state. And I heard this morning that there is an initiative perhaps to have a Bastrop County chapter of Latin American League of American Citizens. So that would be a wonderful thing. Of course, we have with us this morning Senator Gonzalo Barrientos, our own native son, who has been such a force, not only in developing policy for the state of Texas that included everybody and made our education system much stronger, but who has deep roots right here in Bastrop County. We're very proud to have you this morning, Senator, as you will be addressing us in just a moment. Our very special guest, Minerva Delgado, is here, right here behind me. Minerva is here with many of her family today. Her aunt is here, certainly. Minerva's aunt is here, her mother's sister. She will be celebrating her 100th birthday later on. She's sitting right down here. And I just leaned over and said, lead on, just lead on. We're right behind you. Wouldn't that be a milestone for some of us to achieve? Well, and we're also happy to have the grandson of the judge who made this historic decision back in 1948. The grandson, George Sprague, is here this morning. George, where are you? Raise your hand. Right over here with us. So glad you're here today to represent your grandfather and represent all the judiciary who had a role in righting the wrongs of some of our American culture. And you know, it took a while to do that. We did it in little baby steps at first, and then some giant leaps later on. But through it all, we have come so far. Well, as I said, I'm sure I've missed somebody. There are many other people here today who might be recognized as well. But we're just very honored that you are here today as a part of this wonderful ceremony. I wanted at this time ask Senator Barrientos to come up and give us a bit of history about the school and introduce some of the former students and special guests. Senator, the platform is yours, sir.
Thank you, Judge. Distinguished elected officials, administrators, ladies and gentlemen, and especially former students of the Mina Mexican School, buenos dias y bienvenidos. I am Gonzalo Barrientos. I attended the first grade at the Mina Mexican School. I graduated from Bastrop High, and I was a 130-pound linebacker for the Bastrop Bears. I shall leave the history of the school for Dr. Blanton to give more detail. After my service in the Texas House and Texas Senate, I thought it would be most fitting that a recognition of the event, of desegregation of the Mexican American students, this should be held. While I was preparing for that, I heard that Bastrop City Council member Kay Mcanally was also working on a similar effort, and so we joined effort and energy, and that's how we are here today. I'll give more comments later. For now, let me recognize all of the former students from the Mina school who attended, who are here today, and not all of them could be here today. Some of them have passed, some of them live in other areas of the state or country, and we tried to get the word out as much as we could. For those of you students who went to Mina, stand up and raise your hand. See, some of us are still here and still going adelante. Let me recognize some of the daughters and grandsons and daughters of the icons of Texas. Dr. George I. Sanchez, and you said it's his grandson over here earlier. With us also today is Cecilia Akers, daughter of Dr. Hector P. Garcia. Cecilia, where are you? There she is. Please stand. And also with us today is the grandson of George I. Sanchez and the daughter of Dr. and attorney Gustavo Garcia. Where are you, Carla? Please stand, please stand. That was a civil rights attorney who led the effort with so many other individuals. Also with us is Frank Ortega from LULAC, Marcelo Tafoya, Deputy State Director, Fidel Acevedo, District 12, also District 7 is represented, Joey Cardenas, who had been the lead of LULAC earlier, is now the state chair of Tejano Democrats. Rudy Martinez, also from LULAC, is here. And also Jeronimo Rodriguez, the board member from the Austin Independent School District. Please rise. Please. Let me next introduce the newly elected City Council member from Bastrop in place 4. Bill Innes, he is the former Vice President of the Texas Oil and Gas Association, some 30 years. His organizational efforts on this event were tremendous. Councilmember Innes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a Bastropian by choice rather than birth. But over the past 25 years as a citizen and as a city councilman, I'm so proud of our town, and I continue to carry a great deal of pride for our community. But not as much as I feel for the accomplishment Ms. Lopez and her fellow students and family members achieved so many years ago, which is why I was so extremely honored to be asked to help organize this event. My job here today is to recognize the folks who've been instrumental in our celebration. First of all, we wouldn't be here without the vision of former Councilwoman Kay Mcanally and the hands-on, everyday coordination of Bastrop's own former state senator, Gonzalo Barrientos, who I should add is a former Mina Award student, as he's already said. And you can find a little younger photograph of the good senator on the back of the historical booklet you received at registration. And since this is actually a Bastrop County Historical Commission event, I'd like to recognize Cindy Walford Ginsel, its chair, who allowed us to take over this event and yet did a tremendous amount of the behind-the-scenes work. Cindy, where are you? There she is. Then there are our partners at BISD, Superintendent Steve Murray, Dr. Christy Lee and the Bastrop High School Band, led by Kenneth Gilbreth, your involvement has been so vital throughout this program. And Jill Hellkamp. Jill, would you raise your hand? Owned the property where the school resided and signed the application for the marker, which we'll unveil soon. Which leads us to Steve and Carrie Fossler, who are now owners and have been so gracious in preparing for this day and allowing the marker to be placed on their property. Are the Fosslers here? I know they are somewhere. Would they raise their hands? There you go. And Judy Hoover, I know you're hiding in the crowd somewhere, even though you told me not to mention your name. And former Mayor Ken Kesselis, who is not here today, for their tremendous work in preserving the history of Mina Ward School through verbal histories. Their video is running in the lobby today, and you can see it after this event if you'd like to stay and watch. And you received a copy of Mr. Kesselis's booklet when you entered. And then there's our friend and talented architect, Sergio Altamirano, who prepared the concepts of Minerva Delgado Park, which you will see at the end of this program. The Bastrop County Historical Society, who stepped in and helped when needed, needs to be mentioned. And last but certainly not least, our wonderful city staff under the direction of our tireless city manager, Linda Humble. Where are you, Linda? The Main Street program, the IT department, the Public Works, Parks, Convention Center departments, all worked as one to make this event possible. And last, I want to honor the gracious sponsors who have underwritten this celebration with funding and in-kind services. We have Bluebonnet Electric Co-op, AT&T, Kirk Watson Campaign, Jaregi, am I saying it right? Howdy. Incorporated, Irene Cervantes, Jack and Patsy Martin, the Law Office of Derek Van Gelder, David and Elizabeth Sartain, Pine Forest Investment, and Tuck and Kaiser Law Group. I think we owe all these people another round of applause. Thank you very much.
And I have a $100 check from Rick Kofer for the effort. Since I messed up my notes a while ago, I would like to reintroduce Carla Connolly and her family, who is the daughter of Gustavo Garcia, that great attorney. Carla, thank you. For our speaker, Dr. Carlos Blanton. He is currently a professor of history. He joined the Aggie community in 2001 after leaving Portland State University and his PhD from Rice University. He has authored several books, not the least of which is George I. Sanchez, The Long Fight for Mexican-American Integration. His work has been honored with the Coral Horton Tullis Award for the best book in Texas history. He has also published in the Journal of Southern History and several other journals. In the spring of this year, he started on his works on the next book, Between Black and White, the Chicano or the Chicanos in the American Mind. He enjoys teaching 20th century U.S. history in Texas and also on Chicano and Chicana history. Join me in welcoming Dr. Carlos Blanton, Texas A&M University, Gig'em.
Thank you very much, Senator Barrientos. I have to start off by saying that I often give talks to communities about the context of the history that happened in their place. I've never given a talk to a city or county organization about their history that was this big, that was this well-informed. Congratulations, Bastrop. Congratulations. so much. Good history is here in Professor Casellas' work. I'm a big fan of his work. I've read it in other contexts. But today, I'm really here to speak about the wider context of what happened here, which is the Delgado case, which we're honoring today, as well as honoring those students in the Mina school. I'm primarily a historian of civil rights and activism in Texas, Mexican Americans in Texas, all over the Southwest. I like to focus on Texas. I feel very welcome. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. You know, I'm from Duval County, so we have to be careful where we go. Not everyone wants us around, but I feel very loved and appreciated here, so thank you for that. So I'm going to speak to this wider context. I can't tell you what it felt like to go to school. I can't tell you what it felt like when your parents were sticking their necks out and challenging not just the community, but the system, the wider system. I can't tell you how that feels like. I can't tell you what that was like. Fortunately, I noticed all of those alumni who raised their hands. You have wonderful resources here that I hope you talk to about those ideas, because those are important. It's their legacy, it's your legacy, it's our legacy, and that's what we're here to honor. The Delgado case is very important. You all know that. You're very knowledgeable of that history. I would argue that it's actually more important than a lot of civil rights cases that get talked about in California and elsewhere. So let me begin by talking about the way society was back then. And you've got some of this in Professor Casellas' remarks in your program. But the kind of discrimination, racial discrimination, what we would call Jim Crow, did not just affect African Americans. It affected Mexican Americans too. Racial discrimination against Mexican Americans was every bit as complete, or almost every bit as complete and total as that experienced by African Americans. The daily life of living in separate communities, of not crossing certain boundaries within towns and cities, even farms. The idea that schools have second-class facilities for some groups of students versus others, that there's less funding for certain types of schools. What former President George W. Bush called, and I think this is a perfect phrase for it, the soft bigotry of low expectations, affected Mexican Americans as well as African Americans in Texas. Now here, there are differences, however, and I'm going to talk about one of the differences and why this difference existed. Ever since the 1890s, the court, and I'm going to get into the weeds here, I'm not an attorney, I practice historical law, not real law, but I'm going to get into the weeds of this. Ever since the 1890s, the state of Texas has called Mexican origin people white. That was a problem if you're going to segregate them. So what happened was that these school systems throughout the state of Texas, beginning in the 1890s and the 1900s, developed an entire rationale to segregate Mexican origin people, regardless of citizenship, regardless of class status, in separate schools. This was an educational and curricular and pedagogical justification. There was a whole subset of education theory just devoted to Mexicanos, just devoted to Mexican kids in the schools. Now, these aren't my words. I'm going to be basically lifting straight from all those manuals that were published decades ago. What words did they use to describe Mexican children? They used words like educationally retarded, linguistic deficiency, cognitive deficiency, this is a big one, language handicap. When I looked out at all of those students who raised their hands a little while ago, I don't see that. I don't see any of that. I don't see that when I look at the kids in our schools today, not by the group. Labeling an entire group like that was something that was simply not just embedded in the legal justification, it was embedded in the way teachers were trained. Now, how to break that? This is where local communities come in. Change doesn't happen from on high. It doesn't happen because some president says it, or some senator says it, or some congressman said it. Change happens because communities want to change. And what we had here was several families that after World War II decided they had had enough. They wanted to stand on a principle. Essentially, it's a matter of equality, regardless of what you think of this school versus that school. The idea that my children have just as much opportunity as your children, as your children, as your children, or ought to, is a very important principle. And these parents, they stuck their neck out. They stuck their neck out to fight for it. Let me explain a little bit about the time. 1947, 1948, a very important time in U.S. history. In California, you have the Mendez case that's happening, which declares the racial segregation of Mexican children in basically Los Angeles illegal. Doesn't really go very far. Not much comes of it. In 1948, Texas activists, led by attorney Gustavo Garcia, led by civil rights activist and educator George I. Sanchez, led by several other members, prominent members of the LULACs and what would eventually become GI Forum, decide that they're going to challenge this. Okay, how do you challenge something? Well, you bring a court case. Well, that takes money. How do you pay for it? There weren't national foundations that were lining up to support Mexican Americans in Texas with civil rights cases. No one was doing that. So what do? Figures like George I. Sanchez, for example, went out and raised $100 here, $200 there, $500 there. Local communities, towns with LULACs, held bake sales to raise $20, $30 per town to send it over to the fund. And it all added up. There were towns that were so poor. They were so poor and so unsettled, they didn't even have a LULAC. They didn't have any organization. But they had hinted. They had people out there basically getting money by subscription to pay for these attorneys. So you have the Delgado case that comes up. And Mexican Americans, and I would argue this is different from LA, this is different from the other cases. They do something very smart. They enjoin state officials. By that, they basically get the lawyers to make the argument that every state officer that has some responsibility to education is part of a conspiracy to deny Mexican Americans their rights. This meant that the governor was enjoined. This meant that the Attorney General was enjoined. The Attorney General at the time was the very ambitious Price Daniel. He would later become governor. He likes votes. He's really interested in getting votes. He doesn't want this conflict. Price Daniel is fighting hard to support the University of Texas in its efforts to keep Heman Sweat, an African American, out of the law school. He can't fight two of these cases at the same time. So he decides to basically not defend the practice. Instead, you get essentially a negotiated settlement. The negotiated settlement basically says that, look, however you segregated these Mexican children in the past is no longer permissible. If you are going to segregate kids, it has to be because they have a definable linguistic deficiency that you can determine by a test, and it can only be limited to up to 2 or 3 years, which was a huge advancement from all the case law since then. Very, very important case. In fact, I'm probably going a little bit over time, maybe. Let me check. No, I've still got a few minutes. I told Senator Barrientos 12 minutes. I do not want to cut into his time. I do not want to cut into the speakers behind me, Mrs. Delgado Lopez. That's the important stuff, much more important than what I have to tell you. George I. Sanchez often related a story, and I don't know if the descendant is here, but there was a young girl. Her father went by the name of Perez, and I don't know the first names because we don't have Professor Sanchez didn't always get the trial attorney's case list of the full names and addresses. But I located her name. Her name was Perez, her father's name was Perez. They had come from Galveston. The child, when she enrolled here in Bastrop, knew no Spanish. because she had gone to a school in Galveston where there were very few Mexicanos, so few that they didn't have enough money for a separate school, so they put him in with everyone else, and they learned English like that. She learned Spanish in the segregated school system after her. That's how she learned Spanish. That's how she got her linguistic handicap. I would like to add, George I. Sanchez always told this story, and it was meant to kind of indicate how ridiculous these ideas were. I would just like to point out, I'm in a community in College Station where we have a dual language immersion program that's so popular that they have to limit the size because it's a 50-50 program in terms of English speakers versus Spanish speakers. They have so many English speakers, particularly from good middle-class English-speaking homes. They got people lined up around the block to enroll in this program. They're only limited by the number of Spanish-speaking families they have. That's how popular dual language immersion is. That's how popular we want our kids to learn Spanish, foreign languages, to help them with their other content, because we know that languages cognitively help children learn and help children become smarter. It's like spinach for the brain. And yet then, the school systems regarded the growth, any semblance of the Spanish language, as like a weed, something that choked off any intellectual growth. Totally different from what we see it today. Now, the aftermath. Historians never give happy stories, and the Delgado case was a victory, but it was a victory that was somewhat hollow in the sense that the state of Texas and the communities within the state of Texas continued the same practices of segregation. They did it through different means, and they didn't do it as completely as before. So some of these practices continued, many of these practices continued. And it's not going to be until the 1960s and the 1970s, after civil rights legislation, after the Chicano movement, that you really see more change, and some would argue that we're still fighting for change today. But I would like to say that the Delgado case is one of the most important early Chicano desegregation cases nationally. This isn't just your legacy, and I'm so blown away by how supportive this local community is of remembering this. This is really important. Other communities are not like this. This is one of the most important early Chicano desegregation cases. What you're doing today in celebrating this event is what we as citizens must do if we are committed to building upon our rich historical legacy. Thank you very much.
Dr. Carlos Blanton, I see over there some maroon. How about an applause for the high school Bastrop band right there? Delgado versus Bastrop. Born in Bastrop, Texas, Minerva Delgado Lopez graduated from BISD, spent 4 years at Howard Payne University, received her elementary teaching degree, began teaching at Harlandale in San Antonio. Married, Dan Lopez has 4 children. He taught at Galena Park Independent School District for 35 years. She was once selected, probably several times, as Teacher of the Year. Now she is enjoying her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren. I give you Minerva Delgado Lopez.
Thank you so much. I don't want to get emotional. But I am so honored. And I want to thank, first of all, the city of Bastrop. And right now, I had names that I was going to say. Right now, I can't remember a name. But thank all of you. And so I'm just going to say city of Bastrop, because that would include everybody. Okay. I also, just for bestowing this honor, and it's not just to myself, but to all my fellow classmates that I see some of them, and I told my husband, I said, I don't know if I'm going to recognize any of them or they're going to recognize me. But thanks to Clairol and all this, we look pretty good. Okay. And I want to thank my two friends. I have more, but my two friends that gave up their Saturday to come to be here with me and to support me. But then when they got here and I talked to them last night and they said, oh, you know what, Minnie, we stopped at this antique show. And I said, y'all didn't come to see me. You came to go antiquing or whatever, but thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Also, my cousins that traveled from Georgia and from San Angelo and from Austin to be here with me. Thank you so much. I love you. And to my family, of course. My husband, my 4 kids, and their husbands and wives and significant others. And my grandchildren. And Josh, thank you so much. This is one of my grandsons. And he is in the service right now. He made a special trip to be here with me. So thank you. My 2 precious great-grandchildren that I love to pieces. And right over there, he's clapping. So thank you all. But finally, I want to thank my grandparents. Because if it wasn't for them, I would not be here, or all this would not be happening. But I've almost forgot. I want to also thank my aunt, who's right here, and she's a feisty little old lady, that still tries to tell us what to do. And sometimes we listen and sometimes we don't. But she will be 100 years old in February, so that's quite an achievement. And she was one of the first that in our family that went on to school, graduated, and became a nurse. And we love her. We all love her. Today, I'm not going to focus on we could say the negative of the case. I'm going to try to focus on the positive. Because the Delgado case turned a negative into a positive. Looking back, I realized what a gift it was that my grandparents gave my brother, my sister, myself. The better life and the way to achieve that was to receive a good education. I was blessed throughout my years, and I'm not going, like I said, I wasn't going to talk about the case. I'm going to talk about what became of that, what the product of that. I was blessed with 2 amazing teachers. My first grade is a blur to me because that was not a good year. My second grade, it's okay, but my 3rd grade just turned my life around. I had this amazing teacher who was Mrs. Perkins. And I remember her as a tall, beautiful teacher. And she always dressed so impeccably. She was beautiful. And when she walked around, she was always walking around the classroom. And when she came to us, that she knew we were struggling a little bit because of the language, she would stop by and say, can I help you? Do you need help? Or do you understand what is going on? And we would nod our head or say no. But as she passed around, she smelled so beautifully. I would just smell her. Well, later on when I became a teacher and I could afford the good perfume, I went and bought myself some perfume, and since then, I buy good perfume. And because I remember that she passed, we could always smell around here, because she passed by there. And so she smells so pretty. So what I did when I became a teacher, put perfume on. Okay, but I would put it up here, Well, one time, I had all my kids lined up, and the first one was Cesar. I remember him so well. He was right in front of me, and the kids were lined up behind him. And then all of a sudden I heard, and I said, everybody stand in line because we're going to lunch. And I looked down and I said, Cesar, what are you doing? And he said, Mrs. Lopez, I'm just smelling you. You smell so good. And that did it. Now, I don't want anybody coming out of here and starting to smell me, okay? But I did put perfume on. Anyway, she just changed my life. And then that seed was planted in me that I wanted to be just like her. I don't know if it's a teacher or what, but I wanted to serve other kids. Then I went on to college. I graduated and I went on to college. And my freshman year, there came this blonde white lady, beautiful blue eyes and this beautiful jewelry. And she was my literature teacher. And I didn't like literature before that. But that first day, she changed my life. Because she just spoke with such passion, just everything came to life. And then she stands right before us and says, okay, class, the first assignment is going to be to go find a tree. And she stopped. And then she read the poem, Trees by Joyce Kilmore. But, we would just memorize when we, sat there and just listened to her read that poem. It just came to life. Trees came to life. And since then, I have never looked at a tree just as branches and leaves, but that tree talks to me. There's life in that tree. And I remember her saying, your first assignment is going to be, go find a tree. And that tree is going to be your friend for the 4 years that you are here. And you are going to write in your journal, and she gave us this little journal. You're going to write in that journal everything. That paying thousands of dollars to come here and find a tree that's going to be our friend. It doesn't make any sense. But we did, and we could have a partner. We did go find a tree. And do you know what? That tree became a friend to us. Because, like she said, when you are sad and you don't want to share with anyone, you can go out there and sit underneath your tree and tell all your problems to your tree. Well, yes, we did. My first month, I remember crying under that tree because I was so sad. I was scared and I wanted to go back home. Later on, it was because I wanted to give up because I had to work 2 jobs to keep up with school and pay for school and everything. And I wanted to go, and I would sit there. I can remember it and I think probably people who saw us would think we were dumb. But we would talk to that tree. We would really talk to that tree. And we shed tears there when we, she said, like when you fall in love and then you break up, you're going to go to that tree, believe me. And we did go to that tree. So she changed my whole attitude about literature and about everything, how I looked at life and things. And she told us, she inspired us and told us that we could be anything that we wanted to be. She was my second teacher that changed my life. And because of these ladies, I started to believe in myself. And I pursued my dream of becoming a teacher. I consider myself highly blessed and favored that God allowed me to teach so many children during my 46 years of teaching career. And that's a lot. And you think, really? You taught for 46 years? Yes. And sometimes I would be right there in the classroom at the door waiting for the kids to come in. And I said, why am I still here teaching little first graders? But I loved every minute of it. And my 2 friends over here that were with me, they can tell you stories that I don't want them to tell you that I would do in the classroom, because I'm very animated in the classroom. But anyway, they became my children. And my end goal was never about, I had to prepare them for tests and stuff like that. But That wasn't important to me, not the scores, not all these assessments that we had to do. It was about, does this child feel loved in my classroom? Because that's what I had wished for when I was in first grade. Do they feel safe in my classroom? Does the child that is there before me believe in themselves? Did I instill in them that they could be anything that they wanted to be? I would hope that the answer is yes. And I have gotten my answers as yes in many of the children that still come to visit me. I have 4 children in mind right now that I'm going to tell you just a little bit, and I'm sorry, Mr. Barrientos, I know I'm going to run over time because I can talk all day. But I remember my children coming to me, and mostly at the beginning I had Hispanic children that spoke no English. And but I started speaking to them in English right away. And I remember that when it was pledge time, and right now I remember this, because I would hear them, I'd say, okay, let's say the pledge. And I would hear, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I could hear America, but that's all I could hear. And I thought, oh my gosh. In February, I had to teach these kids how to say the pledge because they're going to say it. They would take turns saying it over the intercom to the whole school. And I said, I pledge allegiance to America. And I said, oh my gosh. Okay, so I would say every day, I would exaggerate. Okay, let's start again. I pledge, okay, allegiance. And we would go over this every single day. So when February would come around, I said, okay, you 4 go. Today's your day. I said, remember, you're not going to embarrass me, right? And so you could hear, they knew they were from my class because they would be so distinct. I pledge allegiance to the flag, you know, and they knew they were mine. Okay, but I was so proud of them. And then there comes this little girl, beautiful little girl. And we had poetry contests, prose and poetry contest in school. And there comes a time that comes around that it was time, you know, to get them ready for the, but it had to be in English. I said, no puedo, Miss Lopez, no puedo. And I remember Elizabeth, and I said, Elizabeth, you're going to say the poem. I chose the poem, Mosquitoes, Mosquitoes, but that has a lot of emotion in it. And she would say, mosquitoes, mosquitoes. I said, Elizabeth, you're not going to win a trophy doing that. So she would still be, mosquitoes, mosquitoes. And so one day I just went and I did like this. I pinched her, but not really hard. And I did this, and she said, ouch! I said, okay, that's how I want you to say, mosquitoes, mosquitoes. Well, she did win a trophy. And later on, she went on through school. She went on to high school and in Galena Park. And when she was a senior, if they're in the top 10%, they get to choose a teacher that has made a difference in their life. Well, very seldom do you get a student to remember a first grade teacher. But dear Elizabeth remembered me. And she chose me as her teacher. And so then they have this big celebration in the district it's called the Dazzling Diamonds, I think. And so you get to go with your student up there and they have a big banquet and stuff like that. And I couldn't stop crying when they sent me the invitation and all this because, you know, it was so, that was my Academy Award as a teacher because that she remembered me after all those years. And because when the last day of school, when she was in my class, she looked up at me and said, Mrs. Lopez, I want to be a teacher just like you. And I knew that all these teachers that had taught me, Mrs. Perkins, Mrs. Dobson, you know, all of that had really paid off. This child, And I said, I won't retire until you come walking through that door and you can take my spot. She almost made it. She went on to college, and then she passed away not too long ago. She didn't finish, but I know she's teaching up there in heaven. Then Ricardo came into my class, and he had a severe limp. One leg was shorter than the other. And he said, Mrs. Lopez, no puedo, I can't do it. But I have this big sign on my classroom right in front that said, yo puedo, I can. I said, you look at that every day because you are going to do it. And that was for all my children. Well, Ricardo went on, and he came to my class, and his mother said, oh, Miss Lopez, he can't do it. Miss Lopez, he can't do it. I said, he will do it. He is going to do it. Well, the other day, in fact, Monday, I was in the doctor's office with my son, and here comes a message. And it was Ricardo's mother. He's in 7th grade now. And he said, and she showed me, she posted a picture, and it was with Ricardo with a little football suit, you know? And she says, thank you, Mrs. Lopez. Look at your student. He made it, you know? And now he's in athletics. He's trying to play football and everything, but they started to believe in themselves, and that's what you have to do. Then my little Kayla came from a broken home and everything, and she just blossomed. Not because of me, but I think it was just that little sign that said, I can do it. And I think my greatest achievement is this one, and she's right here, my daughter, my youngest daughter. Because since she was a little bitty girl, she told me, I will not be a teacher like you. Never. I will not. And I wanted one of my children to be a teacher. No, I am not going to be a teacher. Guess what? She's a teacher. A 6th grade teacher, and a very good one. And I have to right now thank my husband, because I think he knows my children better than I do. When we first got married, I came in with this countless papers that I had to grade after school and at night. And I said, come on, Dan, help me grade these papers, because I've got to get them by tomorrow. Okay. But then he started giving nicknames to all of these children and saying, well, forgive him. I mean, give him credit for this. And I remember the one particular one, his name was Rudy Zapata. So he called him Rudy Shoes. Do you remember that? And he had nicknames for all of them. So all of this is what made my teaching career and why I taught for 46 years. Because I loved it. I finished there, and I went on to teach adults, ESL, after I retired. And now I haven't seen him yet, but a little ex-con, but he's 50 years old. But he's illiterate, and he wants to learn how to read. Well, I can't pass that up. I'm going to teach that little ex-con how to read. So that in itself, and this is what my grandparents did for me. And I've had a beautiful, fulfilling life. And I hope I pass that on to my children, my grandchildren, and now to my great-grandchildren. That love of reading, that love of just experiencing life and doing for others. In closing, I want to leave you with this. One of my favorite children's books is Harold and the Purple Crayon. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. But it's about a little boy whose name is Harold. And he goes on adventures with this magical purple crayon. This crayon, along with Harold's I can do attitude, allowed him to create roads where there were none, break down boulders and barriers that stood in his way to his next adventure. I realize now that that's exactly what my grandparents did for me. They were the magical crayons. They created roads and broke down walls so that I was able to fulfill my dream and become a teacher. and have a very fulfilling life. So I challenge each and every one of you here today with this simple task. Be the magical purple crayon in your child's, grandchild's, or great-grandchild's life, or in anybody's life. Create light where there is none. Break down roadblocks that stand in the way of them achieving their dreams. Instill in them that they are enough, that they are important, and that they are loved. Thank you.
Minerva Delgado Lopez. We'll call our Superintendent Steve Murray up here in a second, but before I do, there are so many people to thank. I just noticed a friend who came in. Her father was named Congressman Bob Eckhart, who helped Gustavo Garcia on this case. Recognize County Judge from Travis, Sarah Eckhart. Please rise, Sarah. Our Superintendent, Steve Murray, has dedicated 37 years to education, 8 years here in Bastrop and several other places in the state of Texas. He's married. He has 2 sons and 1 daughter. To introduce a very special guest, our Superintendent, Steve Murray.
I am thrilled to be here. I don't know if I'm thrilled about following Minerva. But, you know, Minerva, I was so inspired by your story, and I figured what better way for you to come full circle and come back and teach in Bastrop. Superintendents are always recruiting, but then I heard 46 years, and I said I would not do that to her. I mean, I'm a rookie. I'm starting my 37th year. Don't tempt me. You say you may. Don't do that.
I can't give it up.
I know. I tell you what, that was so inspiring. I really appreciate it. You know, when Senator Barrientos and Councilman Ennis came to my office and approached us about being part of this historic and significant event, I was thrilled. And I was even more thrilled as we talked more and more about the fact that who was going to be involved. Obviously, the distinguished guests in the room and on the dais. And I started thinking before I verbalized it that what better way, and certainly now after hearing Minerva, to honor what's taken place and how historic it is than to have one of our own BISD students take part as a speaker. And I was even more thrilled when their enthusiasm matched mine as well, and they said absolutely. I have to admit that I was a little, I was thinking ahead. I already had somebody in mind when I was asking them about having a student involved. And real quickly, I'm going to talk about that student. I have the pleasure of introducing a Colorado River Collegiate Academy, we call it CIRCA, graduating senior, and an Austin Community College candidate for an associate's degree. And I want to say right now, because he hasn't been recognized, but under the fine leadership, CIRCA is under the fine leadership of our principal, Mr. Martin Carnarati, who's here today. She was first and foremost the most appropriate student speaker I could think of after we discussed such, and she was on my mind, as I said, ahead of time. Along with her heritage and her pride in such, there are so many other factors making her the perfect speaker today. She has a passion for standing up for others and standing up for what she believes in, and she truly, truly cares about people. Her passion and drive has propelled her to be a candidate that I spoke of that will walk the stage this May with a high school diploma and an associate's degree from ACC as part of the inaugural, very proud of this, I know Martin is as well, graduating class of CIRCA, Colorado River Collegiate Academy, our early college high school program in BISD. Now, I got corrected earlier today. She likes to correct me. It's our favorite thing, isn't it? She has been to Washington twice. I was going to say Washington and the White House twice. She's been to Washington, D.C. twice and to the White House once in the last 2 years. Yes, I said twice. to participate in the National Civics Workshop, and to participate in the Constitution Academy to study the Constitution and learn key debate concepts and skills. She has worked as a Senate page for the Honorable Senator Kirk Watson, and she interned this summer in Austin for an immigration attorney and law firm. She has competed at the state and national level in Speak Up, Speak Out and other civil discourse platforms, and locally serves as a leader at Circa in National Honor Society, in her student council, and in UIL academics writing, journalism, speech, and debate competition. Oh, in her spare time, she also works part-time. And I and our board probably know her best by virtue of her 3 years as a member of our Superintendent Student Advisory Council. See, she gets to meet with me and several other students monthly to discuss school and school life and make changes and create the best possible school experience for all students. She has also been to numerous Bastrop ISD board meetings, along with other students, to sit in advisory to our Board of Trustees as they seek to honor our theme in Bastrop ISD, to see the future through the eyes of our students. You see, superintendents and other school leaders aren't supposed to have favorites. Guess what? I do. And she's one of mine, Miss Natalia De Bas.
Well, I'm happy that I'm his favorite. Or sorry, one. Okay, so good morning. My name is Natalia De Bas. I am a senior at the Colorado River Collegiate Academy, and I am honored to address you this morning. In all honesty, I don't know what or where I would be without my school. I am what most consider a minority, and although others use the word to describe me, I am in fact a proud Mexican American. My heritage has helped motivate, support, and propel me to where I am today. I am graduating from Circa in late May with a high school diploma, but before I actually walk the stage for my high school diploma, I will have already graduated from Austin Community College with an associate's degree in liberal arts, general studies, and I cannot be more excited. I take my education and future very seriously. I enjoy going to school every day because I know that I am surrounded by people who encourage me and support me 100%. My education is a key to my future, which includes earning a bachelor's degree in political science and eventually attending law school, where I intend to prepare myself to help new immigrants to the United States. I moved to Bastrop, Texas about 11 years ago in 2006, open to the experience of a different educational system. I moved away from a school in North Carolina, which did not offer bilingual education for children who were native Spanish speakers. And upon our move to Bastrop, I remember being excited to be surrounded by other students who struggled in English, and not being looked at in a certain way or being told only to speak English at the time, because my teachers and the other students accepted me. BISD accepted who I was and where my family came from. There was only hope and encouragement from teachers, nothing less. I am continually grateful for what and who I have around me, because again, not only are my teachers and peers here to support me, but the people in Bastrop keep me connected and involved. I don't think I would be who I am elsewhere, because I wouldn't have the people and the amazing opportunities I have at BISD to assist me in my preparation for my future endeavors. And just what were some of those amazing opportunities that I have been afforded because I am a student at Circa and Bastrop ISD? I have had, well, as Mr. Murray stated, I have had the chance to participate in the civics workshop at the White House in 2016, a civil discourse week in DC this past summer, founded the Spanish Club and the Young Democrats at Circa, have had the opportunity to learn more about immigration rights and cases at my internship with the Salas Law Firm, which specializes in immigration cases, and have been a member of Mr. Murray's Superintendent Student Advisory Council, where my voice is always heard. Many, and I mean many, of these opportunities have opened up for me at my school and in this school district. Not once has someone stopped me in pursuing my goals because of my ethnicity or the fact that I speak Spanish. I feel that during my time in Bastrop schools, my heritage, who I am, has been respected and honored. As I look back at the history of Delgado versus Bastrop ISD, I realize how much has changed for the better. Most people I talk to are not even aware of the case or haven't stopped to think about its impact. 1948 was not all that long ago. I began to think to myself that not so long ago, people like me, Mexican Americans, could not have gone to a high school. Certainly a school like mine wasn't in existence, and if it had been, its doors would have been closed to me. The educational opportunities that I have been blessed with were not open to Mexican American students in the 1940s. If it were not for this case, or people standing together to advocate for their educational rights, we would not see the current trends in Hispanic high school graduation rates and college enrollment. According to the Pew Research Center, the percent of Hispanic students dropping out of high school is at an all-time low. And the share of Hispanic high school students enrolling in college, 69% in 2012, has been higher. Positive change is happening, and the current trends I've just described have their roots in the efforts of Minerva Delgado, the other 20 parents of Mexican American students in this case, their lawyer, Gus Garcia, and the LULAC, who challenged the segregation of Mexican American students in Texas public schools. Today's ceremony and this memorial are so important to Bastrop. Most of Bastrop's ISD students are Hispanic, and most, if not all, have goals to further their education. I being one of them. I am grateful and proud of this piece of history, and I am proud to be a student at the Colorado River Collegiate Academy in BISD. If I could, I would personally thank every person who took part in this landmark case. I would want each person who risked so much by taking part in the Delgado versus BISD to know that we Mexican American and Hispanic students don't take what our grandmothers, grandfathers did 2 generations ago for granted. BISD students are graduating from high school and enrolling in college in record numbers. Personally, as a student learning on a BISD campus, I have discovered my passion. I want to help immigrants by protecting their rights as their immigration attorney, and I will realize my goal because I have all the support I need here. Thank you.
Thank you, Bastrop High School Band. And so, ladies and gentlemen, where do we go from today? What do? We must learn from the past. This historical marker that will be unveiled on Main Street will be a recognition of a time when Americans were not treated as Americans, a recognition of a time and place when Mexican-American children's education, learning, and the opportunity to reach the American dream was thwarted and denied. But that marker will also be a recognition that our American justice system can and did work through the lawsuit that was implemented by attorney Gustavo Garcia, Professor George I. Sanchez, Dr. Hector P. Garcia, LULAC, GI Forum, and so many others, like Congressman Bob Eckhart. But that marker is a recognition that when Americans, a country of immigrants, joins hands, works together to solve issues, those are our proudest moments. I remember that when we were integrated, I, as a little boy, was sometimes called names, you know, like Meskin, Spick, Wetback, and it hurt my feelings. But my abuelito, my grandfather, told me, no los culpes a ellos, sino al corral donde se criaron. Do not blame them, rather blame the corral in which they grew up. We must tear down these corrals. We must strive for all to be raised in a healthy, caring environment. We must assure that democracy works for all. We must all do our part to make our state, our country, and the world a kinder, gentler, fairer place for God's children. Judge Pappy, thank you.
Very well said, Senator Barrientos. Very well said. And that picture of you reminds me of a little redheaded kid that grew up out in Portales, New Mexico. I had more Spanish friends than I did white friends, and my family worked beside our Spanish neighbors in the cotton fields and in the peanut fields and harvesting the crops. And I grew up with a great respect for the Villarreals and the Lopezes and the Garcias, all those kids who were faster than me and better shots at basketball, and just a great experience of growing up in a mixed culture like that. And your story is a part of that story as well. What a wonderful day this has been. There's another guest here with us today, Ms. Walcott. Keisha, would you come forward? Ms. Walcott is from Senator Watson's office. Barrientos used to be our state senator. We went through a couple more, and now we have Senator Kirk Watson. I tell him that he represents about 3/4 of Travis County, Ms. Eckhart, and he represents 100% of Bastrop County, so he's really our senator, right? So he's come today with a resolution. Keisha, would you come and read that resolution from the senator?
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Like you said, my name is Keisha Walcott. I'm here with Senator Kirk Watson's office. It is an honor for me to be here. I'm so thankful to be able to read this proclamation that was actually signed by Senator Watson and Senator Garcia. I myself am an Afro-Latina, and I'm from Panama, and this is just amazing to me, and my family has been through this type of things as well, so I'm so happy to be here. Anyways, I will get started. So the Senate proclamation is number 117. Sorry, I have allergies. I was better yesterday, but today I'm not so great. The Senate of the state in Texas is pleased to join the citizens of Bastrop in celebrating the September 23rd dedication of this Texas historical marker, commemorating the landmark Delgado and Bastrop ISD federal court case. Prior to the 1950s, most Mexican-American children in Texas attended segregated public schools, and many of them did not attend schools at all. To address this discrimination, a group of professionals, including Attorney Gustavo Garcia, the University of Texas professor George I. Sanchez, and Dr. Hector P. Garcia, filed a federal lawsuit in 1948 on behalf of this group of Mexican-American children attending segregated schools in Bastrop. Named in honor of lead plaintiff Minerva Delgado, the case received invaluable support for such established civil rights organizations as the American GI Forum and the League of the United Latin American Citizens. The litigation was successful and the case ended legal segregation of Mexican American students in Bastrop and eventually led to the integration of Mexican American students throughout Texas. What an accomplishment. This is great. The courage and perseverance of the students, their families, and their many supporters had a profound impact on the lives of the countless Texans and is truly fitting of a Texas historical marker. Commemorate their efforts now, therefore to be proclaimed that the Senate of the state of Texas hereby commend the people of Bastrop for commemorating the city's rich historical event and extend to all best wishes for rewarding Texas historical marker dedication and ceremony. That a proclamation has been prepared in the honor of this special occasion and signed by the Honorable Kirk Watson and the Honorable Sylvia R. Garcia. So thank you very much, and again, this was amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you, Keisha. Give that to Bill Peterson right there. Thank you very much, Keisha, and be sure to express our sincere appreciation to the Senator for his work on that resolution. Thank you. Now, we're not going to, this is not church, so we're not going to pass the plate, but someone came and gave us this $100 bill. Miss Marie Ruiz, she said she had to leave early, but she didn't have a chance to bring her check. Oh, there she is right there. Bring her checkbook with her, so she just dropped this $100 bill over here to Senator Barrientos. We will be sure that it gets put in the pot to help pay for the expenses for this wonderful occasion. Thank you very much. At this time, thank you. If anybody else wants to donate to the good cause, please do.
It's from the Montessori School.
From Montessori School. Well, good for you. That's wonderful. Montessori is a great program for early childhood education. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce to you the Honorable new Mayor Bastrop, Connie Schrader, and she has a few comments about Delgado Park and some wonderful news to introduce to this crowd. Mayor, come on up.
Good morning. It's such a wonderful day and so nice to see so many people. And I know we've thanked a lot of people, but it's really important that I thank a person personally for the work that he did on behalf of council. This event and all that's led up to it is not an easy thing to take care of, and I would like everyone to join me in a round of applause for all the love, heart, and dedication that Councilmember Ennis has done for this event. I'd also like to recognize a couple of other people. Our city manager, Linda Umble, is in the back of the room, and I'd like to recognize her. It's been a busy 4 months, and Councilmember Ennis has been working on this for about 3.5 months of that, and the city manager mentioned to me that if she had been in charge of all of this, the city might not have had a budget, and we need that starting in October. So I know she was very thankful for all the time and effort that Mr. Ennis put in. I'd also like to thank 2 other ladies that have spent lots of time and energy and really gone above and beyond the call of duty, and that is Sarah O'Brien and Cathy Danielson. If you'll please join me in a round of applause for them. I'm sure that all of you are like I am. I could have listened to Ms. Lopez speak forever, and I'm going to follow her around after this and try to get her to tell me some more stories. And I'm going to make sure that all of my grandkids get a copy of that book, and don't be surprised if you see me taking minutes of the meeting with a purple crayon. I'll never look at a purple crayon the same way again. This past May, we had a historic election in that we had a record number of people voting. And it reminds me that we're all better when we work together as a community. And we're a rich community. We have a tapestry with all kinds of backgrounds. And when we think about each other with compassion and love, we all benefit from that. I want to tell you about one quick story. It won't be as good as Ms. Lopez's, but it'll be a fast one. I became mayor on May 16th. It was a day I'll remember all of my life. But for today, the most important thing I did, the first official act as mayor, was going to the title company and purchasing the property that would become Delgado Park. So it's really special to me to have such a tiny, tiny part of this story. But I am anxious to talk to you about the park, but before I do, something like this doesn't happen without someone having the vision first. And to tell us a little bit about that vision, I would like to introduce former council member Kay Garcia Mcanally.
Thank you everyone for being here on this most important day. When I was born 70 years ago, the attending nurse wrote on my birth certificate, L.A. That stood for Latin American. My Mexican-American father, UT law student, went through legal channels to have L.A. crossed out and changed to white. He knew in the world of 1947 I would be disadvantaged if I was Latin American. In Bastrop in 1947, children attending the Mina Ward School did not get past the 7th grade. Kids in the white school went to the 12th grade. According to reports compiled at that time, the Mina Ward School was a 4-room, 1-story frame building of drab appearance, in need of interior painting and inadequately furnished. The white school was an attractive 2-story stone schoolhouse in excellent condition, with an auditorium and a gymnasium. The white school had indoor toilets with lavatories. It had an indoor drinking fountain. The Mexican school did not. Teachers at the white school had an average of 3.5 years of college. Teachers at the Mexican school had 1.5 years. The white school had a lunchroom. The Mexican school did not. Students at the white school had free school transportation. Students at the Mexican school did not. The white school had a band, sports, and dramatics classes. The Mexican school did not. The move to stop educational inequality and racial segregations in schools started the year I was born. The Delgado et al. Versus Bastrop Independent School District changed the world I was born into. Nevertheless, there were still issues in 1953 when I was enrolled in Matthews Elementary School in Austin. My father, Manuel Nicanor Garcia, walked me to school that first day, and the teacher assigned me a seat next to Alfonso Frosto on the left side of the schoolroom. The following day, my white, English, blonde, and green-eyed mother, Nora, walked me to school. So the teacher moved me to the other side of the room. No one on that side had a Hispanic last name except for me. The little boy I shared the desk with explained, "You got moved because the teacher thought you was a Mexican." When I questioned my parents about the incident that evening, I asked if I was white or Mexican. My father became angry. "Mexicans are Caucasians," he yelled, "and that means Mexicans are white. You are white." My British mother could not understand his reaction and said to him, "Why are you so angry about her question? Your parents are both Mexican, and yes, Kay, you are half Mexican." What was the problem, she asked my father. But there was a problem. My father knew it, and at the age of 6, I suddenly knew it too. Bigotry was rife and segregation was still acceptable in many 1950s schools. Thankfully, we've come a long way in 70 years, and today is a celebration of that journey. The idea of a plaque to mark the site of the old Mina Ward School was brought to me by 2 people. Jill Helmkamp, who at one time owned the property, and Dr. Cynthia Orozco, who wrote a biography about my Mexican-American grandparents and their fight for civil rights. My grandmother started the Austin branch of the Ladies LULAC. Through Dr. Orozco, I was led to the Texas Historical Commission's Untold Stories program. I submitted the Delgado v. BISD story and was granted a plaque to be placed at 1903 Main Street, Foster's house. As a new member of the Bastrop City Council 8 years ago, I dreamed of a park that would honor the contributions of the Mexican-American people. Creating a park was the first project I brought to the council and the last project I completed. With the help and energy of our city manager, Linda Umbel, and our public works director, Trey Jobe, A piece of land close to the school site within reach of a large portion of our Mexican American population was identified and acquired. I am delighted that the City of Bastrop and Councilman Bill Ennis wasted no time in getting this dedication together, and they enjoyed the strong support of BISD, County Judge Paul Poppe, former Senator Gonzalo Barrientos, Representative John Cyrier, Senator Kirk Douglas, the staff at City Hall, and many other distinguished people. This is a day of celebration, but let us not forget that freedoms are hard won and easily lost. It was John Philpott Curran, who lived in 1790, who said, "The condition upon which God has given liberty to man is eternal vigilance." But vigilance is not enough. The gaining and preservation of liberty needs vigilance and courage. The road to this day was paved by the courage of Minerva Delgado and other families who took a lawsuit all the way to the Supreme Court, and by the courage of a brilliant team of lawyers led by Attorney Gus Garcia, Dr. George Sanchez, and Dr. Hector P. Garcia, and by the work of LULAC and the GI Forum. Thank you to everyone who's made this day possible. It is one of the most rewarding days of my life. And my grandparents, Dr. Alberto Garcia and Eva Guadalupe Carrillo, are smiling. I'd like to thank Bastrop Mayor Connie Schrader to join me in unveiling the artist's rendering of Minerva Delgado Park. Could you tell us more about the park and when it will be ready to be enjoyed by all of the people of Bastrop, Mayor? Thank you.
Parks are a big deal in the city of Bastrop. We have lots of them, we enjoy them, and we like walking between them, and we are thrilled to have the new Delgado Park. I'm super excited. Some of you may have driven by the site and you realize that construction has started. Construction's underway, and I'd like to thank Trey Jobe he's the Director of Public Works and Leisure Services, and there he is. Trey, if you'll stand up so everybody can give you a round of applause. Trey and his staff. And Trey and his staff work on the parks, but they don't work on them alone. We also have a city board for parks, and I know several of those members are here. If you're on the parks board, if you would please stand up so we can give you a round of applause. Wow, I hope you guys posted for a quorum. I think that's a quorum of park members there. Construction's underway. Phase 1 should be completed in the next 3 weeks. That's mid-October. See how there's not a specific day, but it's about 3 weeks. We'll have a temporary street, a temporary parking lot. We will also have the playscape and the restrooms completed. And then there is a phase 2, and it will start on October 1st when we start our next fiscal year, and then we'll be able to put in a permanent parking lot. So it's going to be really great, and we wanted you guys to see something, so we have today the rendering of what the park will look like, and I invite everyone to enjoy that. So it'll be just a few more months, but work's on the way, and I invite all of you to please come back and enjoy the park where all children are welcome, where everyone can grow up together and share the same amenities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Mcanally, for your passionate rendition of your own personal journey and how you helped all of us get to this place. Well, folks, this is a big day in Bastrop County because this is a big deal. Honoring those who paved the way toward integration and social equality in this country makes all of us better citizens and reminds us never to let that happen again in our world. And that's a lesson that we and our children and our grandchildren need to hear. All of the dignitaries on this dais with me and all of you sitting out here today are a part of this story. You have something to add, every one of you, from your own perspective. And the very fact that you're here today is witness and testimony to the fact that this is an important event in Bastrop County's history, in the history of the state of Texas, and in fact, in the history of this great United States of America. And so let's take our place. This monument, this plaque that will be installed on Main Street will be a constant reminder of what the prices that were paid here and the victories that were won here so that all people could have equal opportunity and equal treatment in our great society. And so what a wonderful day it's been. A lot of people involved. We won't go through and thank everybody again because I hope you feel properly thanked, properly recognized. Barrientos, you are a magnet for money. People keep bringing us checks. Here's $100. Here's another $100 bill. I hate to start naming the names because a lot of people contribute, but if you want to give Barrientos some money for this cause, he's easy to recognize. So at this time, we're going to have some buses. Are school buses, are they, Steve? Or do we know? Are they carts buses? Are school buses? Okay. School buses will be lined up out here, just outside the front doors. We invite all who wish to jump in a bus, take a ride over to the place where the plaque is going to be unveiled, and then a drive by the Delgado Park. The reason we're doing this is there's not a lot of parking over there. It's a residential neighborhood, and so if you take your car over there, you may have to walk a long way before you get to where the plaque is going to be. So please join us in these buses, and the buses will bring you back afterward, and you'll get to be in your car again. I just want to thank everybody for a great day. Let's give everybody a big round of applause. Thank you, and you're dismissed.